Is
how
it
many
called them?
It's only thing on them.
Them. All right.
and how many pages do we need?
Just do one off.
Just one off? Okay.
Okay.
Good. Please.
No.
Okay.
Economic integration and human least exploitation and violence against women. This is true 2010. Did you see like some economic patterns designed by macroeconomic possibly states global integration, growing inequality, increasing levels of white violence against women, and particularly including Latin American marriage transition led by further decrease in poverty, unemployment, hardship, income, inequality, stress, and violence against women, impacting local policies, progression of women's economic and social status, as well as increasing rape, investing violence, reaching hundreds of thousands of women, and women trafficking, prostitution, and detention like great years, but also economic opportunities of globalization, where it's girls, women, in education, employment, and business, lack of social safety net can mean that they're not very from violence in economies. When economies rapidly expand, to impact export-oriented development in East Asia, susceptible impact of women and girls due to patriarchal family firm structures and less value attributed to women's unmade manly labor. There is considerable evidence in economic growth in Asian countries was accelerated by increasing women's employment, while at the same time widening gender gaps in the labor market. And economic integration creates a need for domestic labor of an immigrant woman, which causes an increase in maid trade and sex trafficking. Mahadi, 2006. Women work as a particular caste situation in economic success over the student that operates for capitalist global economy. Women are the perfect candidates for several jobs before. Working class and immigrants, like migrant women and workers in global flexible temporary job markets, documenting increase in migration of women into the labor costs. When international wars led to the rise in international maid trade and international sex trafficking, many global cities now require and increasingly depend on the service and domestic labor of immigrant and migrant women. And differences between genders are not considered in economic policies, which leads to job segregation and wage inequality. Shander et al., 2010. The fact of gender economic opportunities that men and women occupy different class positions, a lot of them likely to be poor, malnourished, educated, more overworked relative to men, is increasingly important to examine necessary gender inequalities and trade policies, and to take a broad and usually move the development, poverty, and well-being. Mainstream economic literature is often gender blind when it comes to assessing the relationship among trade and equality and poverty economics. Tendency to little difference for gender is at a macroeconomic level analysis, social production, which in terms of certain roles of women usually plays an undervalued, not counting classical economic analysis. This is mainly into the general assumption that macroeconomics are gender neutral. Gender is often ignored in theoretical, empirical, and practical terms, thereby perpetuating gender biases. Economic, social, and political positions of women have been inferior to both economic organizations, literally those different, allows women to be more integrated in labor forces, when gender bias persists women as inferior to men, which systematically manifests itself in the forms of job segregation and wage inequality. Really, position policies proposed as previously third competition to open up new areas for future exchanges of commodities and new trade policies not only generate changing economic trends, but also patterns of price, incomes, and circumstances, all which affect women and men differently. Women are maybe different by trade position differently from men as well. And economic growth in Latin America leads to sexual exploitation of women's bodies and requires a challenge of patriarchy. Castelnau, 2010. Revolutions have meant that everything can be revolutionized except for the life of women. Continue. These are revolutionaries with the revolutions and now in pre-constitution they continue subduing half of humanity. Women is necessary for any proposal for a that we're being or collective projects that in Latin America recognizing no emancipation project is possible if you don't include the total population of half of humanity. Women. It's a single step that allows starting point the important place of struggle, which doesn't include the matter of treats as one of the basic concepts of political action. Men see themselves as obliged to do by wars, way of life, and affirming masculinity, the transformation of those necessarily, which creates extension and justification of determination, subordination, violence suffered by many women during peacetime and during war. The capitalism and categorization of social class is relevant for our history of Latin America, and it is more necessary for the struggle of emancipation. Capitalism can be bodies value patriarchy, which is works and feeds upon women's unpaid housework, wreaks havoc women's lives, and exploits their body in advertising, pornography, and human trade. The history of Latin America is marked by the colonization and the value, domination, and exclusion that mark the bodies of life women still exist. Challenging dominant colonists, racist, culture, and absolute transformation, especially those in the state, isn't required immediate in order to develop the free of wars and violence, which observes various forms of oppression and exploitation and how they affect the only bodies of wars, both the bodies of millions of exploited women in textile factories, in the pornography industry, and human trade, and secret stigmatization, experience of subordination and suffering as part of emotional sexual relations. The accumulation of a global scale constitutes structural and ideological framework in which women's value must be understood to sexual framework and international ambitions related to which they are linked. And patriarchy is the root cause of violence and environmental destruction. Warning Katie, 94. Patriarchal conceptual frameworks generate ideologies of man that testify technological accounts to understand patriarchy is a dysfunctional social system which is grounded in a faulty belief system. Patriarchy is a dysfunctional social system located in the economy of various dysfunctionalities. Patriarchy, the empirical, invisibility of women, two sexes, work nation day. Violence against women, all cultures, culture, and nature, and historical, socioeconomic, culture, and political contexts of the patriarchy is a dysfunctional system, say the fundamental beliefs, values, and attitudes, assumptions of patriarchy give rise to impaired thinking behaviors and institutions which are unhealthy for humans, especially women. On the planet, patriarchal conceptual frameworks intention to maintain impaired thinking as men's will determine whence towards the human's superiority over nature justifies human exploitation of nature. Women are close to nature than men because they're less fragile, more emotional, and respond to more instinctual ways of dominance. The evidence of patriarchy as a dysfunctional system is found in behaviors which gives rise to man's ability, which results globally in rape, sexual harassment, spouse beating, sadomasochism, pornography are all examples of behavior practice sanctioned or tolerated within patriarchy and the environmental construction. Behavior strip mining, factory farming, pollution of the air, water, and soil, agencies of behaviors maintaining and within patriarchy the rest of the belief system that is paid to rape the earth through ascension. The wars, national rights, and order to impose domination on people and nations handling patriarchy and related to dysfunctional behaviors system and the ultimate international and mentally, including among these life conflict of the patriarchy, those concerned with the proliferation, war, environmental destruction, violence, of movements, many feminists, all of patriarchal thinking. When patriarchy is understood, the dysfunctional system that is unmanageable, more is predictable, and lots of conflict of patriarchy. Most of the more for continual features of patriarchal society because they reflect instill patriarchal values and fully need such a system, acknowledging the concept of patriarchal civilizations as being monsters and the first step for reducing the impact and preserving life on Earth. And the alternative is to reject the affirmative patriarchal state action in favor of examining the political through a gendered lens. Tigard, 97. Employing bottom up rather than top-down explanations, feminists claim the global economy and states attempt to secure benefits that from it are built on unequal social relations between women and men, which would determine women's states attract multinational corporations often do so by promising that the pool of docile cheap labor considering young women, unmarried women, products such as economic efficiency are development assumptions of unpaid women's unpaid labor, feminist perspectives on security and challenging levels of analysis matters between the inside and out, not as discrete constructs delineating boundaries between anarchy and order, but as a contest and mutually exclude constitute one of the feminists demonstrate that unequal social relations in which most states are found both influence their external security-seeking behaviors and influenced by investigating states. Gender constructs is not relevant to understanding security-seeking behaviors. Bringing to light social structures to support war, naturalized gender inequalities by invested in markets not relevant to understanding their causes. The gender foundations of state markets must be exposed and challenged before adequate understanding of descriptions for security defined can be deformed. And blindly following structured mindsets like patriarchy seriously hurts education. Reject the app in favor of better education through an analysis of education. Fair 2070. Fundamental dialogue cannot exist unless the dialoguers exchanging critical thinking which discerns an invisible solidarity between the world and people in the midst of no dichotomy between them, thinking which perceives reality as process and transfers government as a static entity, thinking that which does not separate itself from action but constantly immerse itself and to live without fear and the risks involved. Critical thinking, conscious of naive thinking, which sees historical time as a weight, a justification of the acquisition experiences of the past from which the present should emerge normalized or well behaved. The naive thinking, the important thing is the combination of normalizing today. For the critic, the important thing is the continued transformation of the reality on behalf of continuing humanizing of men. Only dialogue requires critical thinking is capable of generating critical thinking. Without dialogue, there is no communication. Without communication, there can be no education, and education which is able to resolve in contradiction between teacher and student takes place in a situation which both address their action and cognition and to the object which they are mediated. Yeah. And rethinking globalization from a feminist framework solves the alternative. Mohatni, 2003. Is in the life experience and struggles of women and girls in the two-thirds world that demystify capitalism and racial sexual dimension and the provided productive and necessary avenues theorizing and acting patterns take capitalism resistance and these particular gender constantly re-identifies realities global and unseen. Not theories often the most radical globalization effectively runs the world such as women and girls is absent. The West is inside increasingly reconfigures globally racially in terms of gender recognition and still looking at feminist scholars such as analytic frames and organizing activist projects to the possible faulty and inadequate analytic frames and generative policy action and subject to political transformation that we must respond to phenomenon of globalization as earth-like regionalization nations of people, especially in two-thirds world globalization and colonized women as well as men's lives around the world. We need an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, and feminist project to expose and make viable the various or forms of subjugation in one's life. It is their particular exploitation of this time, their potential epistemic privilege, as well as a particular form of solidarity that can be a basis for reimagining literary plots at the start of the century. And our approach to breaking down gender systems of subordination constitutes three fundamental shifts. First, a recognition of the political nature of identity. Second, an analysis of history in terms of identity and gender relations. And third, engaging traditional gender norms within cultures and analyzing how they influence and are influenced by a system of subordination. As the Feminism Trial, 2099. A lot of critical ways feminism can play tremendously energizing and exciting and transformative role by practicing vision in three different ways. First, we must recognize put a person as political. Knowing our personal position and traditions locates us in our various communities, we must understand and embrace our hybridity and all our connecting to selves in order to be successful participants in all-encompassing intellectual and progress. Second, we need to ensure that we have been stigmatized as pride becomes part of our public goals. We must become as a messenger or our practice message. We must own our hybridity and recognize we are both the colonized and the colonized. To understand our location, we must explore the meanings and contexts of these contradictions. In order to do so, we must understand all our history. We cannot allow atomization of ourselves because unconsciously or subconsciously we think of privileges. Our vision, we become a foreign observer who purports to define a culture that he or she may well and misinterpret and misunderstand the self-identity and history of our captors as a historical lens. We must reclaim it. Cut card there. I'm open to cross-examination.
Alright, how do we determine who is the dominant and who is the dominated?
Well, specifically, we're talking about like hierarchies that are created or what like oppresses people. So to say that like any one person is dominated or dominating is like sort of like the antithesis of this. Namely, because we think that everybody inherently is dominated in some way, but it's a patriarchal mindset.
Thank you. Why is it bad that we blindly follow a structured mindset?
Okay, well, first of all, like, we're gonna always advocate that the best thing for like being like an educated person and someone who doesn't just like, you know, blindly do stuff like what happened in like, you know, Germany, is that you understand the like the way or the things that influence you and what.
So wait, being blind is bad?
Okay, no. Literally being blind is not bad. Being blind to the like culture and society in which you do actions or say things are good is bad because you need to understand things that influence you in your decision.
How does
like
your
worldview?
How does your alt view preclude our app?
Specifically, well, there's a lot of different ways. First of all, you guys like claim to have that economic, like, there's a good form of the like economic system currently, and like you guys can somehow make that happen for Cuba. And we're gonna always say that the current economic system needs to be restructured in a way that your app can never do because you perpetuate the system. Also, additionally, you said that the state can do this, which we'll advocate is never going to be the case.
What is the gendered lens?
Specifically, it's like an examining. Well, okay, you can look to our what's it? Yeah, Hernandez Trial 99 card. Basically, it's a lens that is aware of the way in which both our political is structured in this patriarchal mindset, and also our history is structured in a way that, like, you know, makes women or men seem much better, and women seem like the damsel in distress and all that. Additionally, how those two like interplay in policy making. That's the third thing.
Who determines whether or not it is beneficial towards gender, or whether gendered lens is beneficial towards gender?
Everybody.
So everybody just automatically thinks, yes, you are correct.
No, okay, look to our Prayer 70 card again. You need, like, individuals need to inherently, like, examine the way in which they view, examine the way in which they are affected. So there's no, like, one way which says that, like, all forms of, like, all girls, like, are this, like, this needs to happen for them.
Is the economy gendered now?
Yes.
Do you get rid of the economy? And or if you're not, what are you changing in the system?
Okay, well, what we're saying is literally to do the all, which again is to first recognize, like, the politics are gendered. Second, to examine the history in which our culture production has, like, been created. And third, like, the way in which those two interlay and become like.
I appreciate your response, but you didn't answer my first question. Do you get rid of the economy?
I did. I said no.
Okay, thank you. Also, all right.
We're flashing. We're timing this prep, right?